From being the most famous 20-year-old on Netflix to being called toxic. Wait, what? Jenna Ortega's reputation has taken one heck of a ride, and we're here to figure out what's exactly going on.
Yeah, well, when I first started acting, because I had no connection to Hollywood or the industry or anything like that, I was told I could only do commercials.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've got some good commercial experience.
You did? What commercials did you do?
Oh, I did a lot. I feel like the most I had a pretty big Old Navy commercial.
If you've accidentally ventured on Twitter in the past few days, you've probably exposed yourself to the debate of whether Jenna Ortega is a diva or a creator. And well, I honestly would love your take on it. But before that, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. Here's the thing. Ortega skyrocketed to success after her role as Wednesday Addams in the Netflix series Wednesday. And believe me when I say this, the entire internet was obsessed with her. For a while there, she could do nothing wrong. That didn't last for long though. In our all-time fave Dax Shepard's podcast, Jenna Ortega appeared to promote her recent film, Scream. And just like most people, Dax turned out to be a huge Wednesday fan. So he had to talk about the show. Now, this is when the young actor made some comments that have the internet going wild. And I don't mean that in a good way. Ortega opened up about how she had to put her foot down on the set because she didn't always agree with the characterization. Let me give you a little bit of context here if you've been living under a rock and don't know anything about her character on the show. So basically, Wednesday Addams is filled with woe. Yes, that's a reference to the show. Anyway, the young girl is known for being so morbid and emotionally reserved and kinda scary at times. Coming back to the problem Jenna had with the show, well, I guess she didn't like how the writers made the character Netflix-friendly in some of the scenes. According to Ortega, that was no way for her character to act, so she'd just not say the lines. And sometimes she even had to sit with the scriptwriters and go through the scenes again. Alright, hear me out here. Can you really imagine Wednesday picking up that dress for her school dance and saying, "OMG, I love that dress"? Yeah, that doesn't sit right with me, or anyone for that matter. And you know the only reason why we were saved from hearing that line in the show? That's right, it's because Ortega refused to say it. I don't know about you, but I'm seeing a young girl who takes her job very seriously. Other things people had some concerns about were other opinions she shared. Jenna also said how it didn't make sense for Wednesday to be in a love triangle. Of course, there's not much she could do about that, but she did retaliate by acting borderline unprofessional. I guess at this point, everyone is just focusing on that part of the interview, and not where she said, "I just grew very protective of the character," because that much is pretty valid. I get it. She might have been a bit too harsh with her words because they sorta implied that the scriptwriters didn't really know how to do their job well, which wasn't cool. There were many other ways in which she could have got that point across. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say that she should have known better. Ortega didn't really do anything wrong here.
For films, I don't know what it is about, having blood thrown on your face and running around screaming bloody murder, but it really is so therapeutic, so much fun. Everyone who works on horror sets loves horror. People do special effects.
Yeah, of course.
Because they grew up loving gore. And
she shared an opinion, so labeling her as someone toxic, that's just way too harsh. But Stephen DeKnight didn't really have a problem doing that. In fact, he turned it up a notch and called her entitled too. The veteran scriptwriter might be someone who has authority over scripts and screenplays, but his comments about the young actor are the reason why he was in the spotlight recently. He commented on how it wasn't okay to expose creative differences publicly, and that she wouldn't have liked it if the scriptwriters had said that she was difficult to work with. Alright, he makes somewhat of a good point also, but it sorta also looks like a 58-year-old man taking it out against a 20-year-old rising star, and that's also not cool. I bet you're thinking, this still doesn't answer the question of whether she's toxic or not. Well, a lot of people actually agree that it's a lot more complicated than that. While Ortega did almost fall prey to the infamous cancel culture because of her comments, it doesn't mean that she deserves to be shunned. I'm not being biased here and blindly taking her side, saying that she did nothing wrong. After all, there are some things about the whole Wednesday drama that don't sit right with a lot of people. For instance, her creative differences with none other than Tim Burton, the director of the show. Burton apparently wanted her to show minimalism minimum expressions. And this wasn't okay with Ortega, who thought that Wednesday needed to show at least some sort of emotional growth. Tim's directions here make total sense after all, he is behind so many great classics. But still, this instance here was really blown out of proportion to extract any sort of drama out of it, when there really wasn't a need for anything like that. The clickbait headlines at the moment stem from the fact that everyone has their own version of Wednesday in their heads, so it's kinda clashing now. Jenna might be in the wrong here for opening up about these problems and making them public because it's making it look like she's difficult to work with, when that's hardly the case. The only thing she was trying to do was stay true to her character, which, by the way, must have been extremely difficult. Wednesday Addams is someone we've been exposed to since our childhoods, and whether you love her or hate her, there's something so eerie about the character that you just can't help but double back. So I guess in her own way, Ortega was trying her best to make sure that the role she played was authentic. But still, at the end of the day, Ortega shouldn't really have dismissed the hard work of others, and maybe even appreciated them for being so compliant and understanding on the set. After all, how often can you get the scriptwriters to change the script for you? This, of course, highlights another big problem people usually have with actors. You see, Jenna here has a bigger platform, so people are gonna believe what she has to say. This means she needs to be careful with her words, because there's a huge power imbalance there, and anything that she says can be taken against the scriptwriters who don't have as much face value. Of course, Ortega is aware of everything that is being said about her on social media. In their podcast, The Spill, hosts Laura Brodnick and Key Reese explain this power dynamic and how it gives a terrible impression on Jenna's part. Why? Because it makes it look like she's just as entitled as the rest. Now, it's not like it's too late for Ortega. After all, she's still young and has a lot ahead of her. So she's just gonna have to watch her words carefully next time and give credit where it is due. But for now, it looks like she's decided to joke about it in a rather cryptic way. Honestly, we're all for it. A few weeks back, she hosted Saturday Night Live with the musical group 1975. In a reel posted on NBC SNL's Instagram account, Ortega tries to act super upbeat, hoping to appear different from her gloomy character Wednesday. But when her upbeat attitude doesn't sit well with the others, poor Ortega lets out a heavy sigh and says, "I can't win." Now, I don't know about you, but it seems like a clear jab at all the criticism that she's been a target of recently. With that being said, that's everything on whether Jenna Ortega is truly toxic or whether she's just an easy target.